Mike, this destruction of statues and now even stained glass windows is a Maoist, Marxist cultural revolution that China experienced, and now we are being put through this by communist agitators.
Mike, I agree with you. I was just about to say, what about our holy statues and our holy beliefs? Are they going to come after those too? And you just mentioned on the show.
Well, that's exactly what they're calling for now. A left-wing fundraiser and activist who has over 1 million Twitter followers is now endorsing the destruction of religious icons and statues in which Jesus appears white. He describes the artwork, which includes some of the most recognizable pieces of art in the Western world, as tools of white supremacy. This guy said they should all come down. All murals and stained glass windows of white Jesus and his European mother and their white friends should also come down. They are a gross form of white supremacy, created as tools of oppression, racist propaganda. They should all come down. If that happens, will Americans wake up? I'm just asking. Wilson, we'll start with you on the Mike Gallagher Show, 20 past the hour. Hi, Wilson.
Hi, thank you very much. You know, what we have is a bunch of roving bands of historical illiterate morons, and they don't know the history. They live in places they don't even understand. New York was named after James, Duke of York, and King George. They had the world monopoly on slave trade, you know, and they gave the Yale University to Yale along with that land to set up. So Yale was started by slave traders, and not only that, even now their fight songs, Bula Bula and Oh Eli Yale, they're all just racist. I mean, the whole thing has to come down. If you want to,
yeah, but they're not going to touch Yale, are they, Wilson?
No,
they won't,
no.
Because a lot of them came from Yale.
But CNN, Ted Turner, you know, Ted Turner went to Brown University. That was a racist university and whites only. You know, we got to take all Ted Turner statues down, you know.
But you're using logic. You're trying to apply logic to an utterly illogical situation. Everything is upside down. You mentioned the real history and how historically illiterate they are. Here's what Rich Lowry writes about Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson is, to use the sort of mindset of the day, the most problematic of the founding fathers. He was a slave owner. He never jettisoned an attachment to the peculiar institution that was a hideous injustice, and in the fullness of time nearly destroyed the country. But of course, that's not why we honor Jefferson. He isn't memorialized on the Mall in D.C. and elsewhere around the country because of the racist things he wrote in Notes on the State of Virginia. He doesn't have a place of honor in American history because of his widely accepted now sexual relationship with one of his slaves, Sally Hemings. He isn't held up as among our most exalted founders because of his fear of slave revolts. No, he's on a pedestal for achievements that still define this country today for the better, Rich writes. He wrote the ringing lines in the preamble of the Declaration that eventually took on world historical importance and were used as a rhetorical and philosophical cudgel against the slave system and white supremacy by the likes of Abraham Lincoln and Reverend Martin Luther King. He was a theorist, a champion, an able practitioner of what we know as Jeffersonian democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people. He wrote the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom that became a model for the First Amendment. As president, he doubled the size of the country in one stroke with the Louisiana Purchase. He was a man of the Enlightenment with incredibly wide-ranging interests from architecture to natural history. He founded the University of Virginia. All of this speaks to his greatness, but none of it is to deny his miserable human failures and his woeful hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, though, cuts both ways, writes Rich Lowry. Would we have preferred that all of America's 18th century slave owners were intellectually consistent? Do we demand that all our heroes be spotless, uncomplicated, without sin? There are such people, but most of them have not been notable statesmen. that Jefferson was deeply compromised by the slave system and yet rose above his own sectional and selfish interests to enunciate timeless principles should be considered an accomplishment, not a reason to relegate him to the ash heap. He always maintained that slavery was unjust and early in his career tried to abolish slavery in Virginia, prohibit the introduction of slavery in new Western lands. The woke Philistines who are targeting him are incapable of thought or discernment and want to jettison much of the country's heritage. A historian once said, if Jefferson was wrong, America is wrong. Well, that's the point. That's what Rich Lowry, that's the point he makes in this piece that we're going to post at MikeOnline.com. Those who want to grind Thomas Jefferson's memory to dust clearly accept both parts of that formulation. If Jefferson was wrong, America is wrong. They don't want to indict Thomas Jefferson. They don't really care about Andrew Jackson. They don't care about tearing down statues of Christopher Columbus. They want to tear down the country. They want to tear down America. Honestly, what other conclusion can you reach? 800-655-MIKE. One open line. Tom, you're next. Hey, Tom, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
BLM, Black Lives Matter, this is my first quick point, if I can make the second one.
Sure.
To me means bowing to Lenin and Marx. And they are control freaks, and you know, kids don't care about Mao, and they think Mao's cool, and Che and Castro and all these people. So we need to start calling them control freaks. Maybe that'll hit them upside the head a little harder.
But let me gently push back before you make your second point. There are a whole lot of people in America who are embracing the Black Lives Matter ostensible message, and they're not Marxists, and they're not violent. They're people who want change, and they are horrified by what happened in Minneapolis. And I just think we got to be careful, Tom, really be careful not to just do what they do in painting with a broad brush. We should be a little more discerning. Does that seem fair to you?
I'm all for that, but they've hijacked that message. But okay, my second point is Kerry said yesterday, John Kerry, who I had the misfortune of listening to during a commencement speech because of a family thing, and I had to sit on my hands and bite my tongue, but to avoid embarrassing the family. But he said that, you know, if Trump gets reelected, there's going to be civil war. Well, I think if Biden gets elected, the risk might be just as bad or greater. But anyway, if is it time? And I know this is a double-edged sword, Mike. Is it time for us to think about that, and for us, if we want to go one-on-one to our local law enforcement, to our sheriffs, and say, we support you. We think law enforcement is vital and key and all those things.
Oh, it's happening all over America, Tom. I'm seeing it now. You see the story of the two black women who bought a white sheriff's deputy in Tennessee breakfast and a note that said, Black Lives Matter, but so do yours. Said that to a police officer. You can't lose the faith. 800-655-MIKE.